The Eurozone crisis, or sovereign debt crisis, represents one of the most severe crises the EU has ever faced. When it comes to dealing with the effects of such a transboundary crisis, all political leaders face a common set of challenges. How do they make sense of the crisis in the eyes of their citizens? How do they bridge the divide between the opinions of experts and the opinions of their electorate when formulating a response? What kind of responses uphold their perceived legitimacy as leaders, and what kind of responses erode it? To answer these questions, we analysed the responses of leaders to the Eurozone crisis in 9 EU member states. We needed to develop an understanding of what prevailing ideas and discourses were in the Eurozone crisis, so we mapped public perceptions by inviting a set of survey respondents to create cognitive maps. This process involved respondents taking a graphical approach to concepts that they associate with. We then combined this dataset with observations from press coverage and opinion pieces in order to build a more complete picture. In order to create cognitive maps of political leaders, we used a database of speeches, biographical accounts, and secondary literature. Despite observing that leaders were reasonably consistent in their meaning-making of the crisis, the cognitive maps showed large discrepancies in what different groups believed the Eurozone crisis represented, with most leaders pointing to public finance and most citizens pointing to economic growth. And overall, the Eurozone crisis narrative of leaders drew more from experts than from that of their own electorates. But, remarkably, we also found that citizens considered their leaders more convincing or legitimate when they voiced ideas espoused in the media than when they voiced ideas similar to their own. Although this is a surprising finding, there is an encouraging implication. Leadership is not just about reflecting or representing the views of your electorate. Leadership is also about trying to influence, engage, educate, and communicate. It is about shaping discourse as well as responding to it. We can therefore conclude that in times of crisis, leaders have opportunities to infuse public and policy discourses to create new ways of managing these crises effectively. To explore more of our themes, click on a link.